No. All right, we're live. We are live on this beautiful Friday. Some would say a good Friday. Jen, welcome.
It's a great Friday.
Thank you.
It's such a great Friday. It is the funniest Friday ever. Literally
It's the goodest Friday ever, and it keeps getting gooder every minute.
That's right.
Like,
oh man.
It's literally like the universe is sending down like crazy things all day today.
Yeah. This is awesome. So Jen, thanks for coming on and joining us on the Awakened Soul. I appreciate it.
I'm so happy to be here. I feel like I was ahead of my curve on the Awakened Soul back in 2000, marching to my own like drum and like literally. I've been in this world for so long that I'm grateful that I have a tribe, like
Yeah.
Yeah, it's finally not lonely, right?
Yeah, it was really lonely for a long time. It was. I mean, it was great because the people that were there with you, but
yeah,
it's now like back in 2000 when my mentor Bob Proctor was teaching me all the universal laws, and I would go back and I'd be so excited. I'd be telling people and they were like, "What?" Look at
Wait,
me.
Bob Proctor was your personal mentor? You worked with him directly? Oh, that's amazing. I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, he was my personal mentor starting in 1999. He actually spoke at a conference that I was at that I shouldn't have been at, but I happened to be there. Universal Divine. Yeah.
Maybe shouldn't. I don't know. Maybe you should have been there.
There's like 30,000 people there. It was in Canada. And I forced my way to the front to find him and be like, I don't know how I know everything you just said, but I know that I know it. And I need to know more of it. And he looked at me and he was like, it was literally like 25, bright-eyed, bushy tail. And he was like, if you're really serious, then you need to call my assistant on Monday. And I was like, okay, call his assistant on Monday. She's like, you need to get to this event at the Ritz-Carlton in Laguna Beach on, I think it was in San Diego on Friday. And I'm like, I was a young business owner at the time, paying everybody before myself. And I was like, okay, I just came back from Canada. I shouldn't go to California, the Ritz-Carlton nonetheless. And I did. I didn't know why I did, but I did. And I showed up and I was at this mastermind with 39 other people. Bob Proctor was the leader of it. And for 3 years, I was in this group called the 3% Club to teach people to think like the top 3% of the world. And Bob introduced us to all his friends, became our friends, and it changed my life.
Wow. And now you know why you were there, right? You didn't know why you were there before, but now you know.
I was like, what am I doing? I shouldn't do that. I don't have the money to go. It was $10,000 to go to the first payment. And then I'm at the Ritz. I was in California. So it's a flight from Philadelphia, but I thank God I did it. It really changed the course of my life.
So you decided to invest in yourself and you're glad you did it?
Yeah. Well, the only thing I actually really do invest in is myself. I mean, I'm a minimalist. And I create products too for a living, so I know how much they actually cost. So my friends crack up when they have like their like Chanel purse, and I'm like, you know how much that actually costs?
Bubble popped.
You know, your Louis Vuittons are actually created at the same exact factory as Jessica Simpson's shoes. Yeah. I was like, stop telling us this. We don't want to know. I'm like, I know it's stupid though. Jessica Simpson's shoes are the same exact shoes, and they're $100, and you just spent $3,000 on these shoes.
Perception, facade, veneer, marketing, brand.
Crazy. Yeah. Crazy. I know too much for my own good.
Well, first of all, sis, I love the quote that you have, scrolling through your, tell us about when was that the epiphany aha moment for you? Or when did you pen that down?
So my children I have 17-year-old twin daughters. They were babies at the time. I had a really dysfunctional childhood, and my ex-husband he is an amazing ex-husband too. He was an amazing dad. But I still felt the need to have my own stuff, my own financial stability, my own life. And I was confused in my identity after having my kids. Like, who am I? Like, I used to be this fitness competitor and this business owner, and now I'm this mom. And what am I? People are like, well, ask me what I do. I'm like, I don't know. Am I a mom? Am I a business person? And it really forced me to get really clear with who I was. And I wanted to show up big for my kids, because I could tell my girls they could do and be anything they want to be. But if I wasn't doing it, I knew that they would be able to see that. And so having them, I know like Aaron just had it, he's going on his second, and I'm not sure. Do you have kids?
I got 3, 9, 7, and 5.
Right. So really, if you're awakened and aware, it confronts you to confront yourself at a different level. And so I was a spokesperson for a lot of brands on QVC at the time. And I was making them a lot of money. We would have to make $5,000 a minute back then. Now it's like $8,000 to $10,000 a minute. During the holidays, it's $15,000 a minute. Wow. And these people were just like me. They weren't like super smart in school necessarily. They didn't come from a great childhood. And I had an idea journal like this big, like filled with ideas. And I would always think, why are they doing it? And I'm not. Like, I looked like I was doing a lot at that point. I'd already had businesses. I was speaking. I was traveling the world as a fitness competitor. But I knew I wasn't living to my potential. And what I learned from Bob and all those mentors were, when you have a moment of truth with yourself, you always have to say, what is the belief that is holding me back? If you're not happy with where you are, what is the belief that is holding you back? And then once you identify the belief that's holding you back, you have to flip the belief to a new belief. And then you need to reprogram your brain and create new neural pathways in your brain to override the old belief, literally weaken the old belief, strengthen the new belief, and then it becomes you. So I recognized I had a significant fear of failure because my dad was a drill sergeant in the Marines. Yes, I grew up in a very strict house. Wow. And he would always say, failure is not an option, which I totally get if you're on a battlefield. But as a child with good self-preservation skills, I just did everything I was good at. And I didn't do anything I was not good at for fear of failure. Like I would be in trouble if I failed, or I was a failure if I failed. So you can't maximize your potential if you only do what you're good at and you're not uncomfortable. So I wanted to be uncomfortable and I wanted to stretch myself. And I knew if I didn't figure out what this root belief was, I wasn't going to change. So I recognized the belief. I said, okay, what's the flip belief? The flip belief is I have more fear of regret than I have of failure. Because if I'm sitting I was literally in a rocking chair, like a white porch rocking chair on my porch. And I was thinking about the end of my life, telling my kids, Mom was really smart and I had all these ideas, but I didn't do them. And here's my idea journal, but other people did the idea journal. And would have, should have, could have, I couldn't do that to myself. So I woke up, I flipped my belief, and I said I have more fear of regret than I have of failure. And failure is just part of the process on the journey to success. And that's what happened. That was how I changed my life. Like literally, not that my life was bad, but I changed the course of my life in that moment.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And that belief drives me every day.
Beautiful. That must be a Philly thing too, because I started to feel like I was a big people pleaser, but I would never do for myself. So what I would do if I knew I had to get something done is I would commit to someone else and then I would show up. Like I would use my own limiting beliefs to my advantage somehow, you know? But it also reminds me, do you know Byron Katie?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds a little bit like that. Is it true? Can you be absolutely certain it's true? Who are you without that belief? And then flip it.
Yeah, flip the belief, reprogram your brain. And that was the most fascinating thing to me is that we can actually change our brains, right? So your subconscious programming was mostly programmed by the time you were 7. And by 7 years of age, you had no real auditing system of who was programming you. Did you just get stressed because you now know you're a programmer of your child? You're like, wait,
I absolutely. I actually, once before he was born, that's when I understood that that's what happens. And then listening to your story about, I just did what I was good at because I was afraid of failure. I was just thinking about being a parent, and we don't even think of these things until we get to be an adult and then start to parent from within and remember what it was like for us. Like that's how you operated because you were afraid to fail in front of your dad.
Yeah.
Like we have to I learned from Tyler because I don't read those books that tell me I need to discipline him a certain way. Now there's a balance, but we have to allow them to, I like to go by, there's no win or lose. It's win or learn.
Yeah, that's true. That's beautiful. It's just being also aware of like, everyone's got stuff. Everyone has issues. Everyone's been through something. Everyone has trauma. Trauma is defined by relativity. So it's all relative. Like my trauma is relative to me and yours is to you. But it's still, and I'm really focused on trauma these days because I feel like trauma is the limitation that everyone has.
Yep.
And then when you heal the trauma, then you change your life. And unfortunately, most people go through life like an adult pinata syndrome. So,
I never heard that one, but yeah.
They all have a blindfold on. They have a bat in their hand and they're trying to hit for the prize, right? And they're trying not to hit anyone while they're hitting for the prize, but they're hitting people constantly along the way and not even realizing the damage that they're causing because of they're hitting people. I don't think most people consciously go around trying to damage other people, but they're damaging other people because of the trauma. So I think at this stage of my career and what I do, my biggest focus is on helping people heal trauma and understand trauma is something existing in all of us. And the faster we understand it and agree with it and acknowledge that we all have it, then the faster we can heal it.
Yeah.
And not damage other people along the way.
Sis, that is everything. So I gave a TED talk, breaking the cycle of child abuse, and you're talking about that drill sergeant father. And I just had this experience with my son. So I have 2 girls and 1 boy, and my son is incredibly sensitive. He's a beautiful soul. And I'm at this point right now where to not repeat the cycles of the past, I choose to let him cry. But my instinct and the programming that was on me, if I cried, I would be hurt worse.
Right. So
I never cried. I fucking sucked it up and then I have diverticulitis later on in life. I'm sick. My gut is everything. I'm like all the sickness I just stuffed in.
I know it's sad because men for so many generations have lived that life.
Yeah. And no wonder they die early and heart attack and all these things.
Yeah.
So I was saying to my son, I also want him to be tough, but I don't want to say tough it out, suck it up. I don't want to repeat that narrative. And so I was letting him cry, and he was really crying. Like what the impression upon me is that you were crying too long now. But I'm like battling this, and this is just like a daily moment. It's not even a big thing, but I'm like having this moment. And then I was like, all right, bud, it's good to cry, and I want you to be tough. And my wife's like, all right. She looks at me because she's been through the healing journey with me. She's like,
that look says everything.
That was everything. Later, I grabbed him. He was walking upstairs. Like, hey, buddy, I'm really sorry. You can cry as long as you want. I said, when I'm learning that it's okay to cry. When I was a kid, I would be hurt if I would cry.
Yeah.
And he goes, you would be hurt. I go, yeah, I wasn't allowed to cry. I would be hurt. And he said, that's really mean. And I go, wow. I go,
yeah.
You know, buddy, that is really mean.
Yeah.
You have the truth of a child.
Right.
Tell
They're
the truth.
Wise.
Really?
They're so wise.
Like, that is mean. But yet that's how parents operate. But hear a child say, that's mean. You're right. That's mean. I wouldn't do that to any other human being on planet Earth. And yet we do it. And so real quick, trauma. I have a buddy who's a Navy SEAL, and he explains trauma that if we all stand along the shoreline of, if every human is on the seashore and there's a cliff above us all and everyone pushes a boulder, the person that caused trauma in our life pushes a boulder into the ocean, all the waves hit us the same. So what your trauma is equal to you, my trauma is equal to me. I really like you're saying it's relative. It's not. Yeah.
So because of my dad being the way he was, even though I was a girl, I was a tomboy, but I grew up with that same, like, tough it out, don't cry, don't ask for help. If you ask for help, it's weakness. And those were my biggest adult life lessons. Like, I had to learn how to ask for help. I had to learn to be vulnerable. One of the most defining moments of my life, when I was about 36, my mentor said to me, what if everything that got you here is what's holding you back? And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. What do you mean? He goes, everything that got you here is exactly what's holding you back right now. And I said, I still don't understand. He said, your self-sufficiency, your independence, your need to do everything on your own, your unwillingness to ask others for help because you think you're burdening people, all those things that got you here can't get you to the next level. And I literally had to process this for weeks and months, and I still process it to this day. He said, I get it. You had to be self-sufficient. You had to be independent. You had to survive. You're a survivor. I get it. But your survival skills are not taking you to the next level of ascension.
Wow.
And until you let those go, you won't go to the next level. And it forced me to strip everything I knew of myself, because that's all I knew. I had to survive. I had to be independent. I had to be self-sufficient. No one had my back ever. How did then you become vulnerable when that's all you know?
Right. It's a hard process, but it's so necessary. And it feels like now's a big time for everyone, right? Because trauma is the catalyst to squeeze you out into that awakening. And if you don't hear it, if you're not paying attention when it's here, then it'll come here, then it'll come here, then it'll come here. And eventually it's going to squeeze you out. And what we're noticing, like I went through my personal trauma before.
Or you suffer if it doesn't, like throughout.
I mean, it's perpetual suffering, but that's a choice, right? Because we want to ignore, we think ignorance is bliss, but now we're getting to the place where ignorance is no longer an option, because we are now being faced with collective trauma across the globe, which is squeezing people out little by little. Some people are still holding on, and that's fine. You know, that's their journey. And I had a hard time in the beginning letting that go and allowing them their free will, because I just never wanted anybody to suffer the way I did.
I know.
But that suffering was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you as well.
Well, it sucks to watch people suffer, right? Yeah. And know that they don't have to. And you have the tools in your toolbox. And you're like, here's my tools. Take the tools. And they don't want the tools, because until they don't want to suffer, they'll continue that journey.
Yeah. And Lucas and I were just talking about how we're at the point now where we have to remember our past is just fertilizer at this point for our future. Yeah. And it's funny what you just brought up. It really confirms that. Like, everything that got us here was meant to get us here. But now what? Now it's time to step into that uncomfortable unknown and trust in that higher power, because that's where the magic is. That's where God lives, in the unknown, right?
Yeah. So you said it the other day when we were doing the interview for my mastermind group, and this visual has stuck with me since then, where you're like, I just stand in my power. And you did it just like that. And I'm like, that is now what I actually think about. Like, in that trust, you just stand in your power, and you're the magnet for everything that's good, that's meant for you to come to you. Not for you to, which is so counterintuitive to me. And I'm still struggling with this, because I'm a go after kind of girl. Like, I take action, but I realized how many times in my life I forced action. I forced something to happen that wasn't meant to happen. And eventually it falls apart. Even if it happens, it falls apart. Usually not in a good way, right? So business deals that I knew from day one shouldn't have happened. They happened, but then they fell. Business partner stole from me. Like, things happen. But when you did it the other day, I just stand in my power. I'm like, that's it. That's what you do. You literally just stand in your power, and then it comes to you. But it's hard because then you have to have faith that standing in your power, everything is going to come to you and you're not going to have to chase it or force it. And you just kind of flow with the day.
Yeah.
Very counterintuitive to how I think all of us grew up.
Yeah.
Well, it's a 3D construct, force, right? But there's power versus force, and power is very different.
Right. Best
and
book
that
ever.
power pose, palms up and receive. And you could stand like that, like before, and you really do receive power from somewhere else.
Well, I think receiving is hard for most people.
Yeah.
Because we're not.
It takes courage.
It takes courage.
Yeah. It takes courage.
I was taught asking for help was weakness. Mm-hmm. And you're burdening other people. So that was probably one of the hardest things to learn, is to ask for help. I still struggle with it, quite honestly. My friends actually, thank God, see it in me. So like my birthday is next week. And one of my girlfriends said to me today, and I'm having a party. She said, how can I help you? What do you need? What do you want me to do? I know you're not going to ask any of us. Do you want a playlist? What do you want? What do you need? And I said to her, I'm good for the party, but I actually want dinner with all my best girlfriends, including her, obviously. And I don't want to ask anyone to do it. She was like, well, we want to do it. We want to do that. So she took it for me, because she knew if she didn't take that for me, I was either not going to do it or do it and feel like I was burdening everyone doing it. So it's still a hard thing to learn, but there's this book, the speaker spoke at this event one time, and it's called The Art of Receiving, I believe. And I think anyone that grew up with the programming, it seems we all had, that's probably that, and letting go are the highest levels of ascension for me anyway.
Sis, I have a story for you. So I grew up molested, beat violently, horrible, heinous things. And I literally was afraid that my dad would kill me. That was the fear in my household. My mom was afraid she would be killed. We were all afraid that we'd be killed. And at 20 years old, I attempt suicide. My life changed dramatically. I get married at 22. I'm a TV reporter. We're climbing markets, kicking butt, growing, like becoming the facade that I thought would be successful. Started ad agency.
Lovable.
All the things. And my wife and I were at a ayahuasca ceremony together. We've done a lot of work to heal. I started having flashbacks in 2016, and everything fell apart. My life dissolved as I knew it. But I went on this journey of healing. And two years into the journey of healing, we were at this ceremony together, and she said, you say your love language. This is what she's telling me. She said, you say your love language as words of affirmation, but you are like a bathtub without a plug in the drain. And it doesn't matter how much I fill it up. Wow. It's never enough. And I'm looking at her in this very real moment, this raw moment. And I see in her eyes the rejection of her love not being enough to satiate my need for love. And I saw the rejection turn into resentment.
Wow.
And I realized at that moment, and I'm leading retreats. I coach men on vulnerability. I've talked about vulnerability. I've backed it up. I can talk about these things right now. I can talk about I was afraid my dad was going to kill me. And, I can talk about vulnerability. But I had 1% sheath left on my heart, because what did it really mean? If I really, really dropped my wall, would you kill me?
Yeah.
Would you kill me? And in that moment, I realized that in Hebrew, the word love is ahava, which means to give. So the greatest act of love I can give is to receive another person's love.
Yeah, that is such an amazing story. I'm so grateful that you shared that, because I think so many people go through life struggling with the same thing with their partners. It's amazing you and your wife could actually talk that through.
Yeah, we've done a lot of work together.
By the way, that ceremony, ayahuasca. Yeah. One of my good friends, he is very successful. He has done a lot of work. He reads every book. He lost his fiance tragically in a car accident and couldn't recover. Was just so lost and broken. And that's how he healed, going through those ceremonies. He went to 2. The first one really helped him, and he went back to the second. He said he went with all men, so it was like a brotherhood that he created. But that's how he healed. And I share that with people all the time that are in lost places that can't get out of it, at least where they need to function. And I'm glad that you shared that story, because it reaffirms like that is truly a process that many people can heal from.
Yes. It's interesting when I lead men's retreats, the men's retreat, I always have 6 guys come, and I'm the facilitator, and I pair 2 guys up. So each pair is responsible for cooking either breakfast or dinner. And so throughout the weekend, everyone's responsible for cooking 3 meals. But the guys that cook the meals serve everything. In fact, the guys that receive can't even put salt or pepper. They can't season their own food. They have to ask. And it's the first time men serving other men on their plate, and they have to ask, and the rules are very strict on it. You cannot grab for anything. You must ask for everything. And you know what's so fascinating to see? Some men get triggered and they're not able to receive. Some men are triggered by serving.
I'm sure. I'm sure they are.
And this is like the basic thing. This is not even part of the program. It's just what I'm priming the pump for later. Like what talk about vulnerability is being encouraged to say, you can kill me, but I'm going to stand, like Aaron's like, I'm standing in love. And the irony of fear, it's opaque. So you can't see through it, but it's so thin. Yeah. So you can breathe on it, just to have the courage to say, and go through it. And you're on the other side and you're like,
I know, because when you're in that though, which most people are, especially after this past year, you're in fight or flight, right? So your adrenal glands are like overcharged. And I was there. So 2019 probably was one of the worst years. It was the worst year of my life. My dad died. I believe my stepmom and stepsister actually participated in killing him. My one daughter was extremely ill, bedridden, like literally everything that could have been thrown at me was thrown at me that year. So to all the other stuff in between, but to lose a parent and then have a sick child was just a lot. And we couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, which made me even more infuriated as a parent. Like, I just wanted to know, like, what action can I take? What can I do? And I'm such a survivor that so many of my friends were like, I don't even know how you're okay right now. How are you okay right now? And I'd say to them, I think because I had such a crazy childhood, I'm actually okay with processing craziness right now. And I didn't realize till January 2021, just a few months ago, that I was in the state of fight or flight for literally 2 years. As awake and as aware as I am, I was in a different dimension for the last 2 years. And not a great dimension by any means. I was in pure fight or flight. So I was defensive for everything. I was scared of everything. I was afraid, like, what shoe's going to drop next. And it took me till January to start to like shake awake, to realize that I was in a different dimension. I lost myself. As awake and aware as I am, I lost myself in those 2 years and afraid something's going to happen in between. And when we're in that fight or flight, we can't think openly. We can't think from a place of love. Like when Aaron goes like this, like, you're now in a place, that's a solid place. It's not weak. You're in a place of love and strength at the same exact time. I couldn't even do that if I tried then. And I didn't realize it. I thought I was. I thought I was the greatest, like, most resilient human being. But I was not myself. I wasn't capable of even thinking to stand that way. Even though I thought I was. That's the craziest thing. I thought I was. I was like, I am the strongest woman ever. What else you got for me?
Right. Because there's an autopilot. Part of that program, there's a mechanical response that we've built up, right? But by nature, fight or flight takes 100% of your energy and uses it to run as fast as humanly possible for 15, 20 minutes. And then we're meant to shake it off when the threat is gone. What's happening is every time we turn on the TV, obviously you have a different experience, but everywhere you look, the threat still exists in our mind, right? Yeah. So you're not going to be able to use critical thinking or discernment. All that takes energy. And if there's a tiger chasing you, do you want to save 20% of your energy to think about something? No. You want 100% of that energy to go towards running as fast as possible. Yes. And yeah, it takes a toll on your adrenals. The adrenals are blown. It's also not just, stress is actually an inflammatory state as well. Yeah. So you're releasing inflammation into your body. And when you don't turn that off, it turns chronic. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what's going on. That can happen with information. I could just tell you there's a tiger outside your door, and then your mind believes it. And then you're in fight or flight, even though it's not actually there. And that's what we're seeing now.
This entire past year. Right. And why I don't listen, I never have my TV on in my house, pretty much ever. It was funny yesterday, I was trying to text the word fear and my phone kept auto-correcting it to deer.
That's a good sign.
And I was like, I am so proud of myself right now. Every time I text fear, it changes it to deer.
And who would ever be afraid of a doughy-eyed little deer? It's a nice little reminder.
It's the funniest thing. So, but it's when you're in it, you can't even see it. You can't see it for what it is. And even again, I keep saying as self-aware as I was, I still couldn't see it, and I was in it. And I think that's what's happened most of our society right now. So I'll post pictures of me traveling everywhere, and I'm at like crowded bars and music. I love music. The biggest thing I miss is concerts. Music. I like loud music. I like everyone like high energy together. So I'll post these pictures, and I know I'm triggering people when I post these pictures. And I probably lost some people along the way, which I'm totally okay with because they weren't my people. Yeah. Right. But I posted and people were like, we're in a pandemic. And I'm like, technically we're not, because the actual term of pandemic, and I go into like the whole vocabulary. I go,
right.
They've taken it off of the internet dictionary now, but it used to be X amount of people dying, da, da, da.
Right.
So I'm like, listen, I'm not drinking your cancer pill right now.
Right.
Because that's what it is. I'm not If I asked you to drink poison, would you drink it? Because that's what you're doing right now. Right. I'm not going to do it. I'm not drinking it with you.
Right. A pandemic is not debatable. There would be bodies in the street and there would be no debate about it.
Right. And listen, I've been everywhere. I was in Asia in February, March. People are like, are you crazy? I'm like, no, I have a strong immune system.
That's right.
If I get sick, I'll get better.
That's right.
I'll live.
Yep.
And the only thing I was worried about that time, crazy story, the only thing I was worried about that time was my daughter Morgan, who had Lyme disease. And I came back and I said, this is before it became political, came back and I said to my doctor, what do I do for her? He said, give her hydroxychloroquine. We use it in SARS and MERS. And I'm like, what is this? So I research it, safe enough for pregnant women, nursing women. You can't even take cough syrup when you're pregnant or nursing. So I said, okay. And the root is quinine, and quinine cures so many things.
Yep.
So I said, okay, let's give it to her. It winds up healing her Lyme disease. Mm-hmm. It literally healed her 10-year journey of Lyme disease.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. It was a magical ending to COVID for us. After that, we were just free people.
That is so beautiful, sister. You're just beginning. You're on a new foundation. And it's interesting. You're like, before I was political. We're not political. I was talking to, and Amanda was watching, or I could see she liked this live. We were talking yesterday. I said, pretty soon, I was joking around, like, pretty soon you're going to be waving a Trump flag. Like, the joke is, we weren't political. We're just living, but it's forced us into this, like, the mass group. And we're not in this mass group, even though we're the majority. We're the silent majority. It's that vocal minority that makes everyone else feel crazy. Or if I, like, if I'm a dissident to the narrative, like, what does that make me? It makes me sovereign.
Yeah, a sovereign human being.
Powerful being that you have ever encountered. And when you look into my eyes and I say no, I mean no.
No. Yeah, it's beautiful.
That is the awakening of humanity, and that's where you are, and it's beautiful. And I want to honor your time and thank you for. I mean, I'm not saying you have to go.
I know. I would love to. I have to take my daughter to work, but I would love to say.
I just think you're such a beautiful soul. I'd love to have you back on. Let's do another live. I think we just.
Yeah, we definitely need a part 2 because we didn't even scratch the surface with some of the stories you told. I want you to talk about the school your kids went to and all that. Even lean in a little more to the Lyme disease story because that was fascinating.
Thank you. It was a journey. I would always say, especially last year, she had such neurological damage and it was crazy. And I would say, God, if you get me through this, I will promise to be the biggest advocate and voice in the world to teach other people not to live through this the same way.
Yeah.
So now that's my next chapter. That
makes me cry.
It's an honor to be on the journey with you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Likewise. I'm excited to come back.
Good.
I've accepted the invitation.
All right, receive it. Receive
I received it.
Yes.
And I accepted it, and I can't wait to come back. And awesome. I would love to stay. I get to teach. I have to teach responsibility right now.
Yes. Go, sis.
All right.
Go. Thank you so much, and have a blessed day.
You too.
Thank you. And go let your friends throw you a birthday party. Ask them for stuff. Make it a game. They'll love it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll send pictures.
All right. Yes, please. And happy birthday.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
What a beautiful soul. What a beautiful.
Amazing, right?
It's so crazy that I hear that story of Lyme disease, and yesterday the video gets taken off YouTube because it doesn't go, it goes against the World Health Organization. And it's like, this girl is healed. You mother.
I know.
This is such a beautiful story, and healing, sovereignty, love, freedom, free thought.
God, nature. Listen, if nothing else, if they really cared, they'd be pushing vitamin C, not donuts.
Yeah, that's right.
It's very simple.
That's what Amanda and I were talking about yesterday. She's I don't know if she's a nutritionist. I don't know if she's watching right now or not. She's such a beautiful soul. I've had her on the podcast, and we had a call yesterday, and that was what really, I think, kind of jolted her awake, was the donuts. And it was like, and not just, and I was telling her, not just like the mom and pop shop, donut shop down the street, people that are making like the most unhealthy of all donuts that have ever existed on this planet.
Right.
Those got pushed. And
what's the holding company that owns that donut shop? It was like Evergreen Holdings or something, or maybe not that, but it was something. Dominion Holdings. It was one of these. It's just ridiculous.
Oh man, brother!
But it's all there for us. The writing is on the wall. We get to decipher it or not. We get to do whatever we want. The hydrochloroquine thing, like quinine is in tonic water, right? So you can drink tonic every once in a while and get some of that. But I have that sitting in my cabinet upstairs since the beginning. And I have written on here, here's the cure. You'll never need it, but now you have peace of mind. And it's still sitting up there. And my doctor, I think I told you this, called me a few days ago about something else. And he's like, yo, didn't I prescribe you the hydroxychloroquine in the beginning? Didn't you ask me to do that for you? And he didn't even know why. I was like, sure, bro. Yeah, whatever you need, Now he's like, dude, if I did that today, I'd lose my license.
That why? Just tells you evil is professed as good and good is professed as evil. That just right there, that story, that narrative.
Just a simple flip. It's that easy too. You don't have to think too much. Just think of the opposite. It's all inverted truth. You just go, whoop.
That's right. The irony was, so when I was in China in 2019, when I was in China and they were explaining, like it was crazy. I'm in Shanghai and there's like Bugattis and Ferraris and like everywhere. Like it looked like Malibu on steroids. And I'm like, what is happening here? Like, and they said what happened was because of the one child policy. Who knows if this is going to get banned now, but they were saying because of the one child, all the inheritance came down to one person.
Oh, wow.
Multi-generation, which created this uber wealth of one generation.
Interesting.
It's super fascinating, right? So that's where all this money and buying everything is like, okay. So, but the crazy thing that I was just hearing the other day is that India has the most doctors. India was the country that, and I had, oh my gosh, I can't even think of her name. I had her on the podcast. She's in India, and she said that India was the number one manufacturer of hydroxychloroquine, that they were ready to rule the world. So this theory now, I forget even where I read this, but it's plausible and it's fascinating that as human population shifts because people took the poison of this like group that had the wealth but believed in non-human life, India will actually be the doctors of the world because there's more doctors in India per capita. And so they will be prescribing what? Hydroxychloroquine. It will actually, it's so crazy that the beginning becomes the end becomes the beginning. It all becomes right. It's fascinating.
Right. Well, and allegedly, and I don't know, it seems as though it also decalcifies your pineal gland, which is what we've been seeing is
to be connected to source more, to be connected. Jesus said, if your eye be single, your whole body will be full of light. What is he talking about? Your two eyeballs? No, he's talking about your third eye. The dot that they put there to remind themselves that there is a greater seeing than the two fleshly eyes. That eye, if it is single, it is full of light. You can see beyond the veil. We can see. It's fascinating. It goes back to the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And this woman said to God, the serpent beguiled me and I did eat. And beguiling is an allurement, basically a filter, a film that comes over the eyes. You can't see. If you're beguiled, you can't see clearly.
Wow. A lot of beguiling going on.
Certainly is. Welcome to the awakened soul, everyone.
You just got to go and get through the opaqueness.
That's right. Oh man, brother.
Fascinating life we live in.
It is, dude. It's so fun. I just feel like I just, when I stand before the origin of all that is, the one infinite creator, I know I'm going to say, I gave it all, man. Like, I'm not going to let it rip in this life. And I faced every fear that I had. I faced I gave it everything. And I want everyone to come to that place. Like, I wasn't like, no, reclaim that human birthright of sovereignty in yourself. And we are, and people are, and the awakening is happening. And
and there's support for it. You left it all in the field, coach.
That's right. I left it all. I gave it all. Man, it's good. Well, brother, I love you.
All right.
Let's stay on Zoom, but we're gonna turn live off, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a beautiful weekend. If you're still celebrating Pesach and Passover, have a beautiful rest of that holiday. And if you're celebrating Easter, have a beautiful Easter. The rising is here. The light is here, and we'll see you guys next week.